Today I want to talk about a couple of left-hand techniques, namely vibrato and string bending. If you've got an electric guitar, it's a possibility you'll have one of these things on, like a tremolo or a whammy bar, whatever you want to call it. Allows you to change the pitch of the strings while you're playing. You can get some fairly dramatic effects with a piece of hardware like that, but there's quite a lot you can do just with the fingers of your left hand. Start by talking about vibrato. Now, if you think about playing a note on the guitar for any length of time and just letting it ring out, it starts to get a little bit monotonous, a little bit harsher on the ear. What we can do is change the pitch of that note repeatedly. It's a very, very slight variation by squeezing the string a little bit tighter than we normally would against the fret wire. What we're doing there is just pushing down with a little bit more tension than we normally would, and then relaxing to the normal sort of pressure that we'll put on the string. Do that repeatedly and it changes the pitch and you get that little vibrato effect. Now, depending on the way your guitar's set up, that might be easier, that might be harder. It's easier on a guitar where the frets are quite high, quite steep, because you've got more space, you can dig your finger in, push the string down. You might see some guitars have what's called a scalloped fingerboard, where the fingerboard is actually carved out. It's like a concave effect between the frets, makes it a little bit deeper, and you can really push down. Guitars like Ritchie Blackmore and Yngwie Malmsteen have very heavy vibrato from the left hand, and they use a scalloped fingerboard to help them with that. If your guitar has shallower frets, what you can do is just rather than pushing the string down against the fret harder than you normally would, what you can do is just bend the string up ever so slightly, and that has the same effect. Or if you're on one of the lower strings, same thing with pulling the string down. So that softens the tone off a little bit, makes the note a little easier on the ear if you're playing it for a long period of time. Now, related to that effect is string bending. And what we do with string bending is we play a note as we normally would, and then we squeeze the string and we bend it so it raises in pitch to another note. So if you think about going from this note here to this note here, what we could do is bend the string like this. And when you do that, it's important that you support the bend. You're fretting the string with one finger, but have the other fingers behind that finger to add some strength. If you think about the tension on a guitar string, normally it's something in the region of 20 pounds or so of tension. That's quite a lot. It takes a reasonable amount of strength to be able to bend that string. So if you can get some extra strength from those other fingers, that's really good. Potentially if you've got to play with your thumb over the top of the neck, you can kind of use that as like a pivot when you're bending the string. String bending is a nice way of moving from one note to another. It gets used a lot in rock and blues music. Really common example of it would be something like this. Okay, so that's bending a string up. There's another thing you can do, is you can actually pre-bend a string and release it down. If you're new to playing the guitar, then string bending might take a little while to get your fingers used to the technique. It really, really helps if you've got some calluses, if you've got some hard skin on the tips of your fingers on your left hand. Otherwise it will be quite painful at first, even more so than just normally fretting a string, because of the extra pressure that you're having to put on the strings as you're bending them up. But it's a really useful technique to have and to incorporate into your lead playing. So it's worth persevering with. Remember, when you're bending a string from one note to another, for all you starting on a note that you recognise, you're bending the string from the D here on the 7th fret of the 3rd string, you know where you're starting from. Remember that when you bend up, where you're arriving is also a note. Don't just squeeze the string as much as you can. So, oh, I'm doing string bending. Know where you're bending from, know where you're bending to, because you want your target note to be a note that sounds right in the context of the piece that you're playing. You could bend it up by 1 semitone, you could bend it up by 2 semitones. Certain places on the neck, if you've got really, really light strings, you've got plenty of leverage, you could possibly get it up 3, maybe 4 semitones, which is quite a big bend. But remember, that target note's got to be right as well, because you're going to be playing that within the context of the piece, so it needs to sound right. Okay, so that's a quick introduction to the idea of string bending and vibrato. Take a bit of time to practice it and get the technique under your fingers, because it is a really useful thing to be able to do. Have fun with it, and hopefully I'll see you in another video sometime soon. Cheers.